Do you not understand how insane it is to then throw him under the bus in something like a New York Times article? What is wrong with you people? Yo, I've talked a bit about my time as an affiliate owner, a time that has come to an end. It came to an end partly because I wanted to reach more people. I've spoken about that before. I had a certain audience. I wanted to reach more people. It's something I've been wanting to do my entire life, was to talk to a bunch of people. So I'm talking to a bunch of people now, so that's cool. But the other thing that kind of pushed me into this is the year 2019 and the year 2020. In those years, anybody who owned an affiliate will know what I'm talking about. You're a small business. Small businesses were completely ravaged by COVID. What were you ravaged by? You were ravaged by the divide of the people, more or less. You were ravaged by the lockdown. So you would lock down. If you would open up early, late, whatever, you'd have people saying you shouldn't open up. And if you weren't opening up, you had people saying, oh, you should open up. I sat right in the middle. And it's like, all right, I'm going to try and listen to both sides, and I want to make the best decision. Of course, my only goal was to get people to be as fit as possible. That's all I wanted. I wanted people to come in, have the best hour of their day, and then go home and say, oh, I had such a good time. That's all I freaking wanted. But when COVID came around, all of a sudden, as a small business owner who had a little bit of a population underneath, like making decisions, you had half the people saying you had to do one thing and half the people saying you had to do another thing. That was tough. It was tough for every small business owner. But as an affiliate owner, you also had Greg Glassman making his Floyd 19 tweet. As soon as that happened, you had people on one side of one thing and then the other side of other thing, trying to make you say something, trying to make you take a stance. All you wanted to do was everyone to get along, hunky-dory, come on in, work out, have fun at the gym, and then go home. It's not something that I signed up for. It's something that a lot of affiliate owners didn't sign up for. And it was a lose-lose battle. So when I see things as a lose-lose battle, I try not to partake in them. I don't think it's really worth my time and energy to say, oh, you should be one way or you should be another way. I don't want to piss everybody off, or at least half of the population off, for saying one thing. Michael Jordan said it in his documentary. He was approached to make some sort of a political statement, and he goes, I'm not going to make that political statement. He goes, wait, you're this guy in this position, you would want to stand up for whatever group was asking him to stand up for something. He goes, well, the other group buys shoes too. That's what he said. He said it in relation to his sales of the Jordan shoes that he sells. And it wasn't that I was trying to sell anything. It was just that I didn't want to piss off an entire subset of people based upon a decision that I would have to then live with for the rest of my life. And you know what? I just want everyone to be happy. That's all I want. I want everyone going up and up and up and up. And a lot of the stuff that I see people taking the freaking axes and go down and down and down at each other. And that's not cool. Why am I talking about all of this? I talk about this because kind of right around that time, somebody that a lot of you who watch my channel know very well, it's Sevan Matosian. Sevan was the head of the media department at CrossFit, and he was released from that position right around this exact same time. Sevan is somebody who I have listened to as a podcaster since, 2015 or 2016, right around the time the CrossFit podcast came out. Coincidentally, it's around the same time that a lot of the podcasts that I liked, I'd mentioned I was a big fan of Barbell Shrugged back in 2014, 2015. It was because they would bring in guests. I would be able to learn some things from them. They would bring in the cool CrossFit guests. I would hear the CrossFit guests speak about things that they would do with their training. This is about the time where I was peak trying to absorb as much knowledge as I could. I wanted to suck it in like a sponge so that I could go forward. I could apply them to my training, see if they worked, if they didn't work, and I could also then use them with the people who were members at my gym. I'd say, hey, I tried this. I learned this from this person at this podcast or whatever. I was a freaking information sponge. And I'm sure that I still have a bunch of things that I say to this day that I learned in the Barbell Shrugged podcast that eventually turned into the Sevan podcast. Because on the Sevan podcast, which was the CrossFit Games podcast, 2015, 2016, he would have a lot of those top name athletes in as well. And he would bring them in, he would have conversations with them, and he would ask questions in which you would want to hear the answers to. It's been spoken about on his podcast, it's been spoken about kind of here, there, and around that he had been asking questions to some people, namely Stacy Tovar, that were not PC. By not PC, I believe he asked what birth control was, and she just gave it a straight out answer.
When you are in these 8 years, is all your female biology the same? Are you still having your menses? You're still regular? Yeah. You could have gotten pregnant the whole time? Yeah. And you just don't? Mm-hmm. You did, what birth control do you use?
Cyclessa.
That's a pill?
Yeah, it's a pill.
You're okay with the pill?
Yeah. Although the girls tell me now, they're like, oh, if you would have gotten off of it, I'm sure you would have PR'd left and right. Oh, good. There's a few of them that got off of it, and their numbers are just skyrocketing, which I found very interesting.
Is there a biology? I
have no idea, but I'm like, well, shit, maybe I should make that a study. But I put my shoes down. It was time.
You did.
Yeah.
I said goodbye.
Oh, can we see her website?
I just want to be 20 all over again.
And I brought up at the beginning of this, like, I don't like talking about things that are weird. It's only weird depending on the situation, and you can read a room. It's something that Sevan is really good at. He can ask a question. If the guest doesn't want to talk about it, either they can say, I don't want to talk about that, or if they all of a sudden get weird, he won't talk about it anymore. He'll change the subject. He's an awesome freaking host of podcasts. So you can see in the freaking Stacey Tovar podcast that she just kind of goes with it, and she starts talking about it, and she's open. And this is so good for everybody because, like me on the Barbell Shrugged podcast, looking for things that they were talking about with their guests that I could apply to my life, my training, my members, there are females out there who are probably high-level athletes who want to know, like, all right, what type of birth control does this person take? They want to get it anecdotally from somebody like Stacey Tovar, who is a high-level CrossFit competitor, somebody who has a lot of training volume under her belt. Certain birth controls and hormones will affect her differently than they will affect other females. It's something that you're not going to be able to read on the internet. It's something that you're not going to get from a doctor. A doctor, for the most part, the person who prescribes you the birth control pills, doesn't have an access to all of these high-level people. If anything, they have access to people who are mostly sedentary, and if anything, they have also learned this from a book. They did their years of schooling, 10 years of school, whatever they have got to go through, and then by the book, they say, hey, you can take this. And it's like, well, most people don't work out as much as people like Stacey Tovar. So when Sevan asks this question to Stacey Tovar, all of a sudden he's doing this huge service to the entire world that might be listening to it. A world of people that, female population. I can't give these answers to people. It's an answer that only somebody like Stacey Tovar can give. It wasn't until recently in the world that like TRT has become an acceptable thing to talk about. If you were to ask about this 10 years ago, you wouldn't be able to find anything. I've talked on end about how I have a PhD in performance enhancing drugs, yada yada, that whole thing, hormones on the male side of the spectrum, just because I wanted to learn about it. I spent my entire time after I sold the gym up until the point where I started up talking on YouTube, just trying to learn everything that I could. I've had phone calls with people who they can tell me their experience with things, and I've made videos on those, and I've had even more that you guys haven't heard about yet that I could talk about forever. I've read the books, every piece of book and information on the planet about the freaking topics, and the reason I want to talk about it is because there are people out there who don't know anything. I've had people reach out to me and go, wow, I didn't know that. And I've also had people who reach out to me and go, oh, you're freaking dumb. You don't know what you're talking about. I go, do you understand that you're calling me dumb? You're calling me dumb because you think that I'm talking at a level that's stupid. And then I also have people who are saying, wow, I had no idea about any of that. You got to cut the middle. Like, you can't just go straight to college. You can't go straight to high school. You got to know 2 + 2 = 4. You got to know 4 + 4 = 8. I am the gap on that end of the spectrum. And Sevan is the gap when he's asking the females these questions on their end of the spectrum. Now, he asked that question, and then he was let go by CrossFit, and then he was freaking thrown under the bus in a New York Times article. The New York Times article reads, CrossFit Inc. also sometimes flaunted a raunchy attitude towards women in its own promotion. In a podcast interview for the CrossFit Journal conducted in January 2018, Sevan Matosian, a longtime deputy of Mr. Glassman's, interviewed Stacey Tovar, an affiliate owner in Omaha, Nebraska, and a popular retired professional CrossFit athlete. Mr. Matosian asked her if she was sexually active with her husband and if she took birth control pills. He told her he preferred her in a bathing suit photo of her on a website to showing her one in an athletic competition. Your body is freakishly amazing, he said. Lamenting changes brought about by a Me Too movement, he said, you can't even ask your significant other for oral sex anymore. When you read it like that, it sounds kind of bad. When you listen to the podcast, watch or talk to it, I'll link it in the description, it's nowhere near as bad. Everyone's joking about everything. He isn't trying to talk negatively. He isn't trying to be derogatory. It's half entertainment, and then it's half informational. And it isn't making Stacey Tovar at all uncomfortable. I always make the joke, it's like, do you even watch my videos? Do you know what we're doing here? And the reason I make those jokes is because I can tell when people haven't listened to or watched or had any sort of insight into what I'm saying here. And when people would bash Sevan for this sort of thing right here, it's they didn't do their own research. They didn't go ahead and check out the thing where he was talking to Stacey Tovar, seeing that there was an awesome back and forth, cool chemistry. She's like, hey, I'll be on the show again. All they did was read the article for what it was, and it's like, ooh, you can't ask somebody that. The best thing about somebody like Sevan is he hasn't changed a bit. He just interviewed Annie Thorisdottir yesterday. Annie Thorisdottir, he asks her, what sort of birth control is she on?
So we finished that year at the games, and then we started trying soon after that.
What contraception were you using?
It's like a ring, just like a Nuvia ring that I use.
You put a ring on and you can't get pregnant? That sounds
No.
Oh.
It's a ring that you put
inside
your
of you. Oh,
yeah.
I like, and you put it in your vagina. So it's like a diaphragm? It's like a diaphragm?
Yeah, almost.
Can I see that thing, Caleb? A Novia ring? So there's no you don't do anything biologically to your body. There's no it's not like the pill or anything. It's like a physical barrier.
Little like thin plastic ring that you take out and you put in. So it's like
that thing has a hole in it.
Like, it was cool to know what Stacy Tovar was up to because she was a very high-level athlete, but then Andy Thorisdottir is an even another level because she just went to the CrossFit Games and finished second. She had a kid, and then she finished second. So he also asks about that entire process. Within that, you'll hear that she was going into labor for 3 days. 3 freaking days! How would you have ever heard that from anybody, especially somebody at her level, if he hadn't asked the questions that he was asking her? That video, in my opinion, should have 1 million views on it from 1 million different women who are thinking, okay, what is it like to be at that level, and then having that sort of question asked, and then getting that sort of a response, because if you were put into Andy Thorisdottir's shoes, you have no idea what it would be like. Another thing that she mentions right around that section is that her baby girl, after birth, was recovering really well after the entire surgery because she was working out, doing CrossFit the entire time leading up to her birth. That's also something that's very cool. A lot of females that I've had come to me and talk to me about working out during their pregnancy, they ask, is it safe for the baby? And when you hear Andy Thorisdottir say that thing, you hear that, oh, it wasn't only just safe, but it also helped the baby get through the pregnancy process, recover faster, feel better, much healthier from having just worked along with Annie during her pregnancy. And that's super cool to hear. It's something that a doctor isn't going to get from a textbook. It's something that a doctor isn't going to have anecdotal or any sort of experience with because most people don't work out the same way Andy Thorisdottir does. And then you've got somebody like Sevan who is asking these people these questions so that the entire world can hear the responses. Do you not understand how insane it is to then throw him under the bus in something like a New York Times article? What is wrong with you people? So there are people in the world, and I've mentioned like the Greg Doucette, Derek, More Plates, More Dates channel, and they're a wealth of knowledge because they're speaking from their experience. They're talking to other people. And all of a sudden, everyone's becoming more educated. And that's what Sevan is in the CrossFit industry. And not just the CrossFit industry, but any single female who is a high-level athlete who is then going through, I don't know, what sort of birth control they want to take. Are they going to get pregnant? What's the pregnancy process like? Should they be working out? This is a wealth of knowledge. There's so much that you can take away. And it's something that I've bashed on for other podcasts before. Not just CrossFit podcasts, but every podcast. They'll have this huge guest on, and then they'll be like, what did you eat for breakfast? How was your toast? It's like, we don't give a fuck what your toast was like. You know what we want to know? We want to know the hard questions. We want to know what it was like when you went through that birthing process. We want to know what it was like when you were recovering. We want to know how long that you were breastfeeding for, that sort of crap. And maybe I don't want to know that. I still find it interesting. Maybe I do want to know that because when I hear that sort of thing and then I have somebody who I'm working with who is going through a pregnancy, I can relay that information. It's sitting in here now because I heard it on the podcast. And then, no, I'm not a freaking doctor. So you know what I would say? I would say something like, well, I heard Annie Thorisdottir say on this podcast that she went through this, so maybe you're not quite on Annie Thorisdottir's level, but we can bridge the gap. We know that it's okay. What did your doctor say? Always refer to the doctor. The doctor is the gold standard, but there's always anecdotal evidence, and it's going to help people make more educated decisions because sometimes the doctor doesn't know everything. They only know what they know. We ourselves are the science experiments. And when you hear people on Sevan's podcast talking, they are the results from these science experiments. And it's very cool. We should all be thanking him, and we should all be sharing his video around everywhere so that everybody can hear it. So all in all, that was my whole tie together thing. I hope that everybody understands that there is a time and place to make every question askable. There's a time and place to take up a stand and make a stance in things. And for me, in my time in my affiliate, that wasn't my time. My time is here now on the internet trying to bring up this sort of thing because I see this sort of thing very beneficial. That and the no refs. So do your part. Go ahead and share Sevan's podcast because that's something that should be kind of heard everywhere all around the world. And go ahead and throw a thank you at Annie Thorisdottir for sharing her experience because, you know, some people might not want to do that, so you should be thankful that she was willing to offer that up, you know, on a freaking public forum for everybody to learn from. Awesome all around. And Riller out.